Mr. Prime Minister, India has long prided itself as the world's largest democracy, but there are many human rights groups who say that your government has discriminated against religious minorities and sought to silence its critics. Um, as you stand here in the east room of the White House, where so many world leaders have made commitments to protecting democracy, what steps are you and your government willing to take to improve the rights of Muslims and other minorities in your country and to uphold free speech?
I'm actually really surprised that people say so and so. People don't say it. Indeed, India is a democracy. And as President Biden also mentioned, India and America, both countries, democracy is in our DNA. Democracy is our spirit. Democracy runs in our veins. We live democracy. And our ancestors have actually put words to this concept, and that is in the form of our Constitution. Our government has taken the basic principles of democracy, and on that basis, our constitution is made, and the entire country runs on that. Our constitution and our government, we have always proved that democracy can deliver. And when I say deliver, this is regardless of caste, creed, religion, gender. There's absolutely no space for discrimination. And when you talk of democracy, if there are no human values and there is no humanity, there are no human rights, then it's not a democracy. And that is why when you say democracy and you accept democracy, and when we live democracy, then there is absolutely no space for discrimination. And that is why India believes in moving ahead with everybody with trust and with everybody's efforts. These are our foundation principles, which are the basis of how we operate, how we live our lives. In India, the benefits that are provided by the government is accessible to all. Whoever deserves those benefits is available to everybody. And that is why in India's democratic values, there is absolutely no discrimination, neither on basis of caste, creed, or age, or any kind of geographic location.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for the Prime Minister, but first a two-part question for you. Your comments at a fundraiser this week appear to be the first time in recent memory that a sitting U.S. president has called a Chinese leader a dictator. Did those comments about President Xi undermine or complicate the progress your administration has made in maintaining a relationship with China? And secondly, on India, as you raise these broader issues of human rights and democracy, what is your message to those, including some members of your own party, who say that your administration is overlooking the targeting of religious minorities and crackdown on dissent in Prime Minister Modi's country?
The answer to your first question is no. When we're talking to our allies and partners around the world, including India, we let the idea of my choosing and avoiding saying what I think is the facts with regard to the relationship with India, with China, is just not something I'm going to change very much. I think I believe that, and I've said this for some time, that the hysteria about the relationship with China is collapsing and moving, et cetera, et cetera. We had an incident that caused some confusion, you might say. But the Secretary Blinken had a great trip to China. I expect to be meeting with President Xi sometime in the future, in the near term, and I don't think it's had any real consequence. And what was your second question?
So as you raise these broader issues of human rights and democracy, what is your message to those, including some members of your own party, who believe that your administration is overlooking the targeting of religious minorities and a crackdown on dissent in India?
Well, look, the Prime Minister and I had a good discussion about democratic values, and that's the nature of our relationship. We're straightforward with each other, and we respect each other. One of the fundamental reasons that I believe the U.S.-China relationship is not in the space it is in the U.S.-Indian relationship is that there's an overwhelming respect for each other because we're both democracies. And it's a common democratic character of both our countries and our people, our diversity, our culture, our open, tolerant, robust debate. And I believe that we believe in the dignity of every citizen. And it is in America's DNA, and I believe in India's DNA, that the whole world has a stake in our success, both of us, in maintaining our democracies, makes us appealing partners, and enables us to expand democratic institutions around the world. And I believe this, and I still believe this. Kumar.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. Sir, my question is on the issue of climate change. Both countries have spoken strongly about the need to tackle the climate change, but there is a view. Both countries have spoken about the challenge of climate change, but there is a view that ambitious targets are set, but implementation is found often lacking. And there is also a criticism of lack of technological transfer, financial transfer from the developed countries to the developing nations. How do you both leaders see the way ahead on this pressing issue?
Well, first of all, I think it is the existential threat to humanity, climate change. It's the most serious problem we face as human beings. We have to keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius. We've made enormous progress here in the United States on dealing with this issue by doing three things. Number one, by insisting that we move every one of our industries into a position where they can take advantage of cheaper and more extensive and more available renewable energy, whether it's solar or wind or hydrogen and green hydrogen. There's a whole range of things we've been working on. In addition to that, we find ourselves in a position that what we've done is that we have significantly reduced for example, I made a commitment that we are going to make sure that by 2030, 30% of all our land and sea and oceans were in conservation, could not be developed. We're well on our way to doing that, and that's also absorbing carbon from the air as a consequence of that because of the conservation. We are in a position as well that we have provided for significant increase in funding for a whole range of issues, but not just for the United States, but for the rest of the world. For example, we're working with the G7 to provide for infrastructure work for dealing with global warming on the continent of Africa. In Angola, building the largest solar project, moving ourselves, having railway to go all the way across the southern from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean in Africa, to be able to transport and do it cheaper and do it with less, how can I say it, less carbon emissions. We're trying to work with other countries to maintain their carbon sinks so they don't have to develop them like we did in causing pollution. And we're trying to figure out how to work out to pay them not to develop certain areas like the Amazon and Brazil. But there's a lot of technology that's available that we're sharing and we share with one another. We've learned how to do solar energy, which is considerably cheaper than it is for fossil fuels. The same way dealing with not just solar, but dealing with wind. And so there's a lot of technology that we've developed, and we're well on our way, I think, to meeting the commitment we made that we made in Paris. And we're prepared to share all of that with India that has a desire to do the same.
Excellency, you said very rightly that as far as India is concerned, the environment, climate, these are extremely important in our cultural traditions. For us, the environment is an article of faith. This is not just something that we need to do for convenience. We believe this. We do not believe in the exploitation of nature. In order for all of creation to work, we can make nature, but we cannot have exploitation of nature. And we have always believed this. And on the basis of these values, we are not only doing things for ourselves, but are taking some global initiatives as well. You perhaps know that the G20 countries, the promises they made in Paris, of all the G20 countries, India is the only country that has fulfilled all the promises it made at the G20. Not just that, in the area of solar energy in Glasgow, we had set ourselves the target to achieve 500 gigawatts of renewable energy. By 2030, we have set ourselves the target to make Indian Railways net zero. And you must understand the scale of Indian Railways. When we talk about Indian Railways, it means that every day the entire population of Australia travels in our wagons, in our railway wagons, on our trains. And we have set ourselves the target to achieve net zero for our railways. We have also set ourselves targets for solar energy, for ethanol, 10% mix of ethanol. We have completed this target before the set date. We are also working in the area of green hydrogen. We want India to be a green hydrogen hub, and we are working towards this. In the International Solar Alliance has been launched by India, and many countries have joined it and are working with India. The island countries, we have helped them in the area of solar energy so that they have now got a new confidence that we are with them in their efforts to fight climate change. And we will not only fulfill our responsibilities, but we will also help you in the area of climate change. We have seen that due to natural calamities, people talk about the death of people, no doubt, when there are natural disasters, but there is a lot of destruction of infrastructure as well. And therefore, because of climate change, the kind of crisis we are feeling, we need to develop infrastructure that is resilient. And therefore, we have created a global organization called CDRI. And you perhaps know that in Glasgow, I presented a subject to the world, and recently it was launched by the UN Secretary General and myself. That is Mission Life. And when I say life, I mean lifestyle for the environment. Therefore, every individual must live his life in a pro-environment, a pro-development way. And we are working towards this. And I am sure that whatever work India has started in all these areas, not because India has adversely affected the environment of the world. We are doing this because we have a concern for future generations. We do not want to give our future generations a world that make life difficult for them. And therefore, as a global responsibility, India has not caused any problems to the environment. However, we are playing a leading role in contributing in a positive manner as far as prosperous countries are concerned. There's always been talk about technology transfer, financial support, and there are some countries that need to have technology transfer, financial support, and we hope that as soon as we can move forward in this area, we will be able to solve this challenge of climate change. Thank you very much.
We have caused damage in the United States the way we developed over the last 300 years. And that's why I was able to convince my colleagues in the Congress to pass legislation, the largest climate fund ever in American and the world history, $369 billion. $369 billion to deal with the climate crisis. And we're doing it extensively now, and I think you're going to see significant progress. Thank you all very, very much.